everyone. Thanks for joining me here on GoLocal Live in the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm Molly O'Brien. Today we are talking about science, sports, and then a new legislation planned for 2018 by the Women's Fund of RI. So thank you so much for joining us here on January 29th. So for my first guest, I would like to say hello and welcome to our friend, Kim Arcan. She is the visualization lead for NASA's Chandra X-ray Observatory. Kim, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So I always have a great time talking to you. We always love talking to female scientists. And so today we're going to talk about a couple different things. So something fun, if you haven't heard, if you haven't noticed online, a lot of people are talking about, there's a lot of buzz around this, super blue blood moon happening January 31st. So Kim is going to help us break it down. What does it mean? Why is it special? Why is there all this buzz around it? So thankfully you're here to help.
Sure, absolutely. So the super blue blood moon, I'm going to break it down piece by piece.
Cool.
So the supermoon is about essentially the relationship of the moon to the Earth. So the moon travels in this elliptical orbit around our planet, and at its farthest distance is called the apogee, and at its closest approach is called the perigee. So we just happen to be at the point where the moon is at its closest approach. Now what that means in like practical terms is that it's perhaps 14% bigger in the night sky, the way it looks to us, and perhaps up to about 30% brighter. Now what's interesting is it's actually really hard to tell the difference in the size because the moon is not huge to us here on Earth, and also the human eye is not incredibly sensitive to that. But we can definitely see a change in the brightness. So you should be able to see that it's brighter, and maybe you could tell that it's a tiny bit bigger. Now, the blue part is actually interesting too. The blue moon actually used to mean the third or fourth full moon in a certain season or segment of the year. But since about the 70s, that definition has changed, oddly enough, to kind of something that somebody miswrote a long time ago. So now the common definition of a blue moon is actually the second full moon in a given month. And there's, a few of those any year. So it's not something totally rare, but it's something that's, not every month either. And then the blood moon part actually comes from the fact that this will be a total lunar eclipse, which means that the Earth will essentially be between the path of the sunlight coming from our sun and hitting the moon. So the Earth will be blocking that light, most of that light. So what happens is some of the light will actually still get around Earth's atmosphere, and some of that blue light that's in the visible light range will actually be scattered away, and then we'll actually only see kind of the reddish, copperish looking light behind. So it gives it that kind of red glow.
I mean, it's just absolutely fascinating. When you're looking at all this and talking about all this, each individual event seems just kind of normal when you're talking about these bodies, but when you put them all together, is it a little bit special?
Yes. Well, okay, I think the moon is special all the time.
So
but that's just my own opinion. However, I think the last time we had this conjunction of both a blue moon and a lunar eclipse was about 150 years ago. So that makes it pretty cool. Now, unfortunately, the lunar eclipse for us here in New England and all of the East Coast, we really won't be able to see it. You have to travel much more west to be able to see it because any given half of the planet will be able to see it, but at this point, unfortunately, it'll be day for us and we'll miss most of it. But if you travel towards like Colorado, California will be able to see it, weather permitting. Alaska will have a great view. Russia and China will also have a really great view. So we will miss the most exciting part of it, which is the lunar eclipse, but still we'll get to see some. And I think our moon is special because for one, it's our nearest planetary body, and it's the only planetary body we've ever stepped foot on besides Earth, which is, I think, awesome. It controls our tides. It makes our planet wobble just the right amount to have good weather. So it does a lot of really great things.
Oh, that's, when you put it like that,
Who doesn't love the moon?
Who doesn't love the moon? Just the fact when you can see it, you can definitely appreciate it a little bit more. So what will we be able to see and appreciate this when we're here in southern New England? People waking up, going to work. Sometimes you can appreciate, you see a lot of Instagram pictures when the moon's a little bit bigger or brighter. We have a beautiful sunrise sometimes.
Yeah.
So what will we be able to see and appreciate?
Well, we'll definitely be able to see that we have a really nice, big, bright, full moon.
Okay.
That is for sure. Okay, well, weather dependent. Actually,
okay.
I haven't looked at the latest forecast.
I haven't quite either.
But I think it's going to start around 5 o'clock in the morning, and you can actually log on to NASA TV, which is free, in order to see the real lunar eclipse happening everywhere as well. So even though we'll only kind of get to see a really big bright moon, we'll actually be able to get to see the lunar eclipse from other locations just through NASA TV and other, YouTubers, I'm sure.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I mean, you and I were talking about this before, that NASA does just such a great job of promoting these kind of things and educational opportunities. And so, yeah, they are broadcasting beginning at 5:30 Eastern Standard Time, so our time. So if you're interested in checking that out, also you can follow NASA Moon on Twitter.
Yes,
just
it has its own Twitter account.
It has its own Twitter account.
I mean, everybody has their own Twitter account, so I guess that's not super exciting these days. But.
So why not follow the moon
Why not?
on Twitter? So yeah, if you want to wake up a little bit early, then you can check that out. I think it's always interesting too. You and I had this conversation before the eclipse that we experienced this summer. It's just the fact that people are talking about this kind of thing.
Yes.
People are actually looking up. What does that mean to you as a scientist? Like, this is your body of work. Like, this is what you do. What is it like just to have, normal everyday people walking around and talking about a super blue blood moon?
Well, yeah, see, I love that. I mean, yeah, sure, like a supermoon is not in of itself incredibly original, perhaps, and, we do get a couple lunar eclipses a year. But having all of these things together and having people get excited about them, it just makes me so happy, because I think it's always worthwhile to look up. It's free entertainment in a way. Our ancestors pretty much guided their life according to the moon. They would make plans on the nights of full moons because that's when they could be social. Harvest events were done around the phases of the moon. And I think it's just really useful to maintain a connection to the night sky, even as light pollution gets worse and we are more indoors as a species and all of that. Having that connection to the night sky is really important.
I think that's incredible. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the actual eclipse of this. You talked to me about this, that we can actually learn a lot of things from an eclipse or a shadow. And NASA's going to be doing some research on this. Talk to me a little bit about that.
They are, actually. So what's great is in a typical phase of the moon, when you have, light slowly moving, sunlight slightly moving off and on the moon, the temperature changes, everything that happens, the light changes is a very slow thing. What happens during an eclipse is that it's really fast in comparison. So NASA's actually going to be studying those really fast temperature changes that can happen to see what could be found out. But the idea of using shadows and eclipses as a tool for research in general is actually, I think, one that's a bit undersold or underappreciated, if you will, because there's a lot that you can learn by studying how light is blocked, and that's all shadow is just blocked light. So for example, in my own area, X-ray astronomy, we've used the Chandrasekhar Observatory to study how the light was blocked from one particular moon of Saturn, which is Titan. And in order to do that, it was going in front of a really bright object, a dead star, which is one of my favorites. And having that light that was blocked allowed the scientists who were studying the object to figure out how thick the atmosphere of Titan actually was. And we weren't able to do that with such precise measurement up until then. So that's just one example. But this idea of blocked light being used as a tool is actually one of the reasons we have so many exoplanets, or planets outside our solar system, that we've been able to discover in the past 20 years. When I first started astronomy in like 1988, exoplanets and the study of were really not a thing. I think there were 2 at the time that had been discovered, and now fast forward 2 decades, and there are thousands. And the reason that we've found so many is through this idea of blocked light using what's called the transit method. So you have a star and you have its planet outside of our own solar system, and as the planet goes in front of that star, the light from the star is essentially dipping, so the light curve dips from that object, and then as the planet goes on its way, eventually the light curve is restored. So by studying the change in the light curve of a star, you can understand how many planets and kind of like the basics of them. And then by using something called spectroscopy, which is kind of like the DNA fingerprinting of light, you can understand more about those faraway planets. And what we found is incredible. I mean, I don't know if there are any Star Wars fans out there exactly, but I was a Star Wars fan growing up, and I still am. And the idea of Tatooine, which is this dry, dusty planet with multiple suns. Yep, they found one like that. The frozen world, I think it was Hoth. Yep, there's a frozen world around a zombie star. The idea of water worlds like Camino, yep, they're out there. So there are all these amazing places that we've been able to learn about partly through the method of blocked light.
It's absolutely incredible that something as simple as a shadow, something that we experience almost every day.
Really,
I mean,
on the beach, wherever
you are, whether it's through natural light or artificial light, something we experience every day on this planet can lead to so much knowledge and so much information. Light years. I can't even. I don't know how to describe the amount of light years, but light years and light years away. How do we, simple minds such as myself, how can we comprehend the wealth and knowledge of information that's out there as we look at these exoplanets?
Well, I mean, there's so many discoveries that we've been able to find through this, and I think it can make the idea that there are so many of these exoplanets out there that we now know about, and so many more that we have absolutely no idea about. I mean, again, just to give more examples, like there are planets where it rains diamonds and rubies, and another where it like rains glass sideways. I mean, there's just an incredible diversity of these exoplanets for us to learn about. But all of these discoveries, I think, are really important for us learning more about our place in the universe. And two, a lot of this is done with taxpayer money, and the data is freely available for people to be able to go look at. NASA does, I think, a great job sharing that information and trying to promote everybody's inclusion in it.
And I think for anyone who says science is boring, just listen to Kim talk. Because if you say there's a planet out there that's raining diamonds, if you're bored,
it's pretty cool.
Really, let's
go look it up.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah.
I think it's pretty incredible. And like you said, that this information is out there, it's available, the funding is happening thanks to our tax dollars. So if you're interested, the data is out there. Which kind of leads us to the next part that we want to talk about, is that this data is available, and it's being made available in new ways. And this is something that you've been really working on, being able to access data in new, cool ways. Through the visualization, you've worked on 3D stars. You had a 3D printed moon, but
I forgot.
You're gonna bring next time.
I will.
And now through visualization projects. Talk to us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so for me, I think this idea of data that's sitting in an archive has a potential value, but data that's been visualized for a specific audience, a specific need, has this incredible amount of added value to it. So when we can get in there and take data that is traditionally represented in a two-dimensional or flat form and turn it into a 3D version or a 3D print or a virtual reality experience, it's just a completely new way for the researcher to understand the data, but also for the non-expert to be able to explore that data. And each time we do one of these projects, we learn something completely new about what's out there. Our most recent example I can talk maybe briefly about is a data visualization done of the area around the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy, Sagittarius A star. And this data visualization essentially takes information from about 30 stars around it, and you're positioned as the viewer as if you're the black hole at the center of the galaxy, and you get to look out and see which of the stars are kind of just going by and are safe from you, and which of the stars are going to start to be kind of tidally clumped as that attraction force gets too strong. And it's just a great way to be able to understand what could just be a simple 2D chart in this new visual way for people of all different expertise levels, visual abilities. It's like a whole new world for me, and I'm so excited about it.
I think it's so fascinating, and it's so cool to be able to have this literally a whole new world and worlds brought to you, and you can put on a headset and you can see through your phone, through whatever the experience is. Eventually we'll get to that, and you can go out there and you can see these different universes. You can see from the point of the black star collapsing.
Yeah.
So you've been involved in this, and you're actually going to be giving a presentation at Brown University. Talk to us a little bit about this event coming up in March.
Sure. So on March 7th, I'll be giving a talk at Brown University's Science Center at 5 o'clock, and I'm going to talk about this idea of transitioning data from all the way down from the bits and pieces, the ones and zeros, the binary code, into two-dimensional versions, and then into three-dimensional and virtual reality versions. And I'll be talking about how we do that and why. And then we'll be giving demonstrations of the actual virtual reality technology itself, so you can put on some of our demo headsets, and then we'll have a book signing after. So I'm pretty excited about it.
I just think it's so cool, the concept that not only is this something that we've been talking about for a long time, is the concept of virtual reality, but to see the process of making it happen, and then talking about why it's important too, right?
Exactly, yeah. It's not just for fun, though it is fun.
It is fun.
And it's great to play, like as a researcher, as a scientist, whatever, like it actually plays an important part of what you do. But having the benefits of our technology explored in these new virtual ways is really fascinating to see what we can learn from it. All the new things that you find. You've been looking at a data set for like 20 years, and you look in it in a different way, and you see something that you've never seen before. I mean, it's amazing.
The possibility for the amount of research, and then you and I have talked about this multiple times before, is the access for everyday people to be able to look at the set of data that you've been looking at for 20 years.
Right.
Just being able to bring that to people. So if you're interested, Kim's going to get us a link for the event as soon as it comes up, and then we'll be in touch as well.
Thanks.
So Kim, thank you so much for explaining the super blue blood moon, breaking it down for us, and the lunar eclipse as well. And if you're interested, we'll put up a link to NASA's information. If either one, you don't want to wake up early, or two, you can't make it to Russia to see it, right?
Exactly. Thank you.
Kim, thanks so much for joining us. Please, everyone, hang tight as we get set up for our next guest on GoLocal Live. Everyone, thanks for joining us here on GoLocal Live, the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm Molly O'Brien. A member of Team USA Bobsled and Skeleton, Evan Weinstock, joins us via Skype. Evan, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. We know you've been very busy doing your training as you're gearing up to head to Pyeongchang for the 2018 Olympic Games. Congratulations so much.
Thank you very much.
So we're excited to talk to you. You have been a pretty competitive athlete since you've been a kid. You are a Brown University graduate, an Ivy League track star, and according to the Las Vegas Journal-Review, it's my understanding that you could very well be the first Las Vegas athlete to compete in the Winter Olympic Games. So that has to be pretty exciting for you.
Yeah, definitely. It's a huge honor to represent a large city like Las Vegas and Brown University, which has done so much for me, and looking forward to getting to the games and hopefully doing the best I can.
That's pretty exciting. So opening ceremonies is just about 10 days away, and you're headed to your first Olympic Games, although you have been competing in bobsled for quite some time. Talk to us just a little bit about that anticipation as you head to Pyeongchang.
Yeah, it's so for bobsledding, it's a little unique because we compete against the same competition all year round. We have a World Cup circuit where we travel to different countries every week, and we compete against the same competition. So the Olympic Games will be very similar to kind of what we've been used to. We've already raced the guys we're racing against at the Olympics. So the competition itself doesn't change too much, but obviously the Olympics brings a whole new atmosphere, a whole new experience that could potentially be overwhelming. But I think I have a lot of experienced teammates who this is their third, second, even fourth Olympic Games. So this will, they've kind of been prepping me for the whole season and even beyond that to kind of let me know what to expect when I get there. But I'm very much looking forward to it. Obviously, the opening ceremonies is something that every kid dreams about, walking in that tunnel, representing your country. So it should be a very exciting time.
You are competing on the 4-man and the 2-man sled team. What is that experience going to be like for you personally?
Yeah, it's a huge honor again. I mean, the 2-man bobsled is it's an event that I've been doing since I began. I have a little bit more experience with it. The 4-man is kind of the premier event, and that's a lot of fun to have 2 other teammates pushing along with us. And I think that to have 2 opportunities at a medal is it's something that I'll treasure a lot and hopefully take advantage of. So it's a very exciting time.
It is an exciting time. And you have been pretty much an elite athlete since you've been doing this. You were named 4A High School Football Player of the Year in Nevada. You still hold the record at Brown for heptathlon. When you tried out for bobsled, it's my understanding you made the national team your first year, and now the Olympics. And you kind of make this sound easy, but I'm sure for most people it's not. Talk to us about your mental and physical preparation as you head into the Olympics, and tell us about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I've always approached every competition or any type of task that I have with the mentality that I want to be the best I can at whatever I'm doing. So with the decathlon, you know, we had 10 separate events within one event. So that really gave me 10 opportunities to try to better myself. And that's something I kind of, I value and I look forward to every time I compete, is to try to just better myself from the last time I competed. And so adding bobsled into the equation, it just kind of gives me another event where, and now I'm on the world stage, that I can really look at my competition, look where I'm at, and see how close I can get to being the best possible bobsledder I can be. And so it's a daily challenge, but I just, that drive alone keeps me motivated day in, day out, and so I can train hard and consistently and know that I have that ultimate goal. And I think the Olympics is kind of the pinnacle of all athletic competition, so that just adds a whole new challenge for me, but I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the competition. You mentioned that when it comes to bobsled, you're competing against the same athletes year in, year out. So when it comes to the Olympics, you're not really facing any new challengers. In the gold medal, in the World Cup event, you and Olympic gold medalist Justin Olson, you placed 19th. I'm sure it's something you want to improve upon as you head into the World Cup. What are you looking to improve upon as you head into the Olympics?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the advantages that Justin and I have been competing with is that our start is really competitive. We've had the top 3 starts week in and week out, and we actually went to Pyeongchang for a World Cup race last season, and we had our best finish there. We placed 6th place in the World Cup. So that I'm very optimistic with our chances going into the games, that knowing that Justin drives extremely well on that track, and we push really well on that track. We had held the start record for one heat, and then we got beat by 100th of a second by a German team. So just at the start. So I think that we're going to be very competitive from the start, and I'm hopefully Justin can kind of hone in his experience on that track and get us down to the bottom the fastest. So for me, I'm going to try to do my part and make sure that I'm as well prepared as possible to be as powerful and explosive at the start, and hopefully put us in contention for a medal.
You just mentioned you got beat by, what was that, 100th of a second?
Yeah, so
Off the start?
As a push athlete, we kind of get measured based on our start, and it's about a 50-meter zone where we accelerate the sled, and that's really my biggest responsibility, is to accelerate the sled the fastest. And there's a start time that we kind of measure against our team, and obviously the fastest start you have at the beginning, it should exponentially get better down the track and hopefully lead to faster downtime. So yeah, we had the start record for the first heat, and it's a 2-heat competition, and a German team ended up beating us by 100th at the start, so they officially hold the start record right now. But to be that close to, against the best in the world, that's gives us a lot of hope going forward into the Olympics.
So when you are competing in an event where you're measured by the 100th of a second, and you're also moving at over 90 miles an hour going down a track, how do you manage your expectations while still staying focused and not collapsing under pressure?
Yeah, it's that's a tough task. I mean, there's a lot of variables that go into bobsledding, a lot of variables that make you go fast. So I think the biggest thing for us is just being consistent. Our training has been consistent. We've been progressively getting better throughout the season. So I think that by the time the competition comes around, we really don't need to do anything spectacular as far as that is out of the normal. So we're trying to keep things as very consistent as possible, do what's been working for us so far to get us to this point, and just hopefully all the little things will come together. And I think that we have great equipment, great training, great coaching, great athletes. So I think that's really the perfect recipe for success. And we really can't do much more than that other than just show up on race day and perform. And I think that to manage those expectations, we just have to treat it as if it's another competition and not really get outside our element. And I think that will be our biggest task going forward.
Talk to me a little bit about the USA bobsled and skeleton team. For anybody who likes storytelling, the story behind the team is pretty excellent. You have people who are very experienced. You have an Olympic medalist. You have yourself, who's an Ivy League track star. You have someone who's an active member in the Green Beret, and you have someone who has NFL experience. Talk to us just a little bit about the makeup of this team and what those different backgrounds and experiences can bring as you head into the Olympics.
Sure. Yeah, bobsledding, it's a sport that most people get into much later in life. It's not really something you grow up saying you want to be a professional bobsledder. So all of us really come from different backgrounds. My background was in track and field. One of my sled mates, like you said, came from the NFL. And people just have all sorts of different life experiences that have brought them to this point where we're now competing as one team. I think that having the different variety of people, though, from different backgrounds and experiences has really helped shape us to unite and to really take on each task that we have in front of us. Everyone can approach it from a different perspective, and I think as long as we trust in our teammates, that really, like I said, will unite us and bring us together to hopefully take on any sort of challenges that's ahead of us.
What are you looking forward to the most about your Olympic experience?
I think obviously it's going to be hard to really know what I'm getting myself into until I get there. But from various experiences, I've heard, the opening ceremonies is something, like I said, that you grow up dreaming about. And just taking that all in and seeing the best in the world from all the different countries walking alongside me and having that realization that I am on the same playing field as everyone and that I've kind of reached the pinnacle athletic competition. That's going to be a moment that I'm looking forward to, and I think it's going to be pretty special.
It's my understanding that you have quite a bit of support as you head out on this Olympic journey. I don't think you're headed out there by yourself. Who's going to be coming with you?
Yeah, I have, I don't know the exact number. I think I heard around 27. So I have a large family, a lot of people from the East Coast that are going to fly out and support me, my brother, my dad. So I got a large group coming out there. They're all extremely proud and extremely excited for me. So it'll be fun. A lot of them have never seen bobsledding before and never really seen the winter sport. So it's going to be an experience for them, and I look forward to kind of sharing that with them.
That's incredible. I do want to talk to you a little bit about your time in Providence and kind of an unrelated Olympic sports question. So you were here in Providence, you lived in New England for some time, but it's my understanding that you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan and the Super Bowl is coming up. So can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. I would love to. I'm a huge Eagles fan. I've since childhood. Growing up in Las Vegas, I never really had a local team to root for. Obviously, going to Brown, there was a lot of Patriots fans around me, and that kind of created a fun rivalry. The Eagles went to the Super Bowl 2004. They faced the Patriots and lost by a field goal. So this is a really exciting Super Bowl for me, obviously because the Eagles are in it, but also because they get a rematch against the Patriots. And I'm just looking forward to it. I'm a huge fan, and I'll actually be in Korea when the game is being played, so I'll be watching it in Korean television, and hopefully they have good broadcasting out there. But I'll be cheering loudly.
All right, so you'll be in South Korea for the Super Bowl. So hopefully, yeah, you can get. I don't know what the time difference is, but you'll have to figure it out.
Yeah.
All right, so you're rooting for the Eagles for that one. Well, Evan, are you Golden Knights fan? At least Las Vegas got a hockey team.
Yeah.
Are you on board
of
with
course.
that?
Yeah, this is our first professional sports team, so having a hockey team and one that's actually doing extremely well, the best I think in the NHL right now. It's exciting for the city. It's exciting for everyone within it to just kind of grow a fan base really quickly, and I'm definitely rooting for them. I'm proud to be from Las Vegas, and it's exciting to have a professional sports team.
Well, that's exciting. Congratulations to you. We look forward to following you and following your Olympic journey. Congratulations. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Of course.
You'll have to keep us in the loop on how you do and when you head back, okay?
I will do. Thank you guys very much for having me, and thank you everyone from Providence and Brown University, and hopefully I can bring back a gold medal for everyone.
We'll be cheering for you. Evan, thank you so much. Evan Weinstock, member of Team USA, Bobsled and Skeleton. Thanks so much for joining us here. Everyone, please hang tight as we get set up for our next guest on GoLocal Live. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us here on GoLocal Live in the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm Molly O'Brien, and Kelly Nevins joins us. She's Executive Director of Women's Fund RI. Kelly, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be back.
Yes, we're so glad to talk to you. Okay, so 2018 is here, and we are talking about new initiatives and continued initiatives that the Women's Fund is pursuing for 2018. So we'll start off by talking about the push for equal pay and minimum wage of $15. So
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about why these issues are important for you and why they're important for Rhode Island.
Sure. So the campaign for fair pay and a $15 minimum wage really works to address the gender wage gap and also the wage gap for people of color. We know from lots of data, lots of different reports, that there is a wage gap. And in Rhode Island, white women make 88 cents on the white male dollar. If you are a person of color, if you are a woman of color, an African American woman, you're making 77 cents on the white woman's dollar. And if you are a Latina woman, you're making less than 50 cents on that dollar.
Wow.
So it's a real problem here in Rhode Island as well as nationally. And so we're working on different ways to address that.
It's incredible that the data shows this, and yet that's just what the data is. So
Right.
you're working to make a legislative change.
Yes.
Talk to me about this isn't just, we're not just talking about it anymore.
Right.
There are bills that you're going to be launching and making that push to make a change. Talk to me about that.
Sure. So there is a coalition. It's called the Fight for Fair Pay in 15 Coalition. It's made up of a number of organizations and legislators who, number one, are working to pass a bill at the State House that would make it illegal for hiring managers to ask what your historical salary has been, because that just perpetuates the wage gap. If you're just getting a percentage over what you used to get, and you are somebody who has traditionally been making significantly less than a white male counterpart, then this is one way to eliminate that issue. The second thing that the Fight for Fair Pay does is it makes it so that employees won't get in trouble if they talk to each other about what their salary is. Our goal is transparency. At the end of the day, it's just to give people the tools that they need so that they can negotiate the best salary for them. What we know is that 41% of mothers are the single breadwinners for their families. And again, if you are a woman, that means that you're making less than men, and you're also taking care of family members on your lesser salary. How do we give you the tools to make sure that you have a level playing ground to negotiate your salary? The second piece is just really the recognition that a $15 minimum wage is not quite a livable wage, but it's much closer. And our campaign is really working towards a 5-year goal of that $15 minimum wage in Rhode Island. It's something that, again, women, particularly women of color, this is a really important issue for, and we want to be sure that we're giving them all the tools that they need to be economically secure and can contribute, honestly, to our economy. We know, and this has actually been proven by national research, if you look at the latest McKinsey and Company report, that if nothing is done to address gender equity and nothing is done to address the wage gap, it will take about 100 years for it to correct itself on its own. We don't want to wait that long.
By then, who knows what's going to happen?
Yes.
I find that really interesting that it's not okay in some workplaces to talk about what you may, and I think that even if it is allowed, quote unquote, it's taboo.
Right.
That people can't discuss their income and what they're making. I know a lot of industries that's shunned upon to be discussing how much you make with coworkers. But when it is, and I think we're seeing this come about in the national spotlight,
Yeah.
you find out the discrepancy between coworkers that may or may not be doing the same thing.
Sure.
But the discrepancy is so large, and we're seeing that being discussed in the national spotlight. So to be having legislation discussed, talked about, and work its way through here in Rhode Island, I think that's just part of the movement, part of seeing things change, right?
And it's true, and I will say that there are a number of businesses that are addressing this on their own. Just recently we heard that Bank of America and Citibank, as well as companies like Salesforce, State Street, and Staples have all made commitments to pay equity. And so how they manage to bring that out through all their different initiatives, we'll have to wait and see. But it's at least exciting that they're recognizing that there's a real issue. That McKinsey report that I just referenced said that really it's up to our businesses and our business community to really help to get us over the finish line, if you will, towards wage equity.
And that's kind of what's interesting. Is it up to our government, or is it up to the economic side of things to make things happen, or is it kind of up to both?
I think it's a concerted effort all around. I mean, it's really a cultural issue is what it comes down to. Now, I will say from the Women's Fund, aside from just working on these legislative issues, we're also doing things this year like teaching negotiation skills workshops. We'll be teaching them on campuses to graduating seniors who will be negotiating for their first salaries. We'll also be teaching this in some workplaces where women are angling for promotions and wanting to know how best to position themselves for those promotions. Wednesday night, we're offering a workshop called Mentoring for Success, and it's really about women finding mentors that can help them, again, to go up the corporate ladder. So there are a number of different ways that these things can be addressed. Of course, there's lots of other issues that impact gender equity as well, and when you think about access to fair and affordable childcare, when you make sure that there's access to quality reproductive health care, all of these things are really important to gender equity.
And childcare, that's always an interesting topic for debate. Affordable is
and quality.
And quality. Yeah, that's another thing. Before we get into that, let's continue talking about the fair pay and the minimum wage. I think the idea of having it take place over the course of 5 years makes sense, and because I think you could probably see some pushback if you were trying to implement it overnight.
That's right.
So have you, when you're working for these strategies and to make it make sense and to make it be fair, have you seen some support from wider organizations and the business community, because you're not making that push for it to happen overnight, but to implement it over a longer period of time?
Well, we're definitely in discussions, or I should say the coalition is definitely in discussions with different employers who are willing to sign on in support of this legislation. And I would invite the viewers out there to join the campaign kickoff for the coalition or the Fight for Fair Pay in 15. It's tomorrow, Tuesday, January 30th.
I wish it felt like July.
I'm looking forward to warmer weather. January 30th, up at the State House in the library at 3 p.m. We actually will have a number of different coalition partners and hopefully some businesses that will be talking about their support of this bill. And together, the Fight for Fair Pay and the $15 minimum wage are ways that we really believe we can help to close that gender wage gap.
And so if people are interested, they want to come to the event or they can't come to the event, whatever the case may be, how else can people get involved? If this is something that they're really interested in and they say, okay, this is me, this is something that I need to get involved in, this is what I want to happen, this is what I want to pass in 2018.
Sure.
How can people make their voices heard?
Well, certainly educate yourself about the issue. So the Women's Fund of Rhode Island would certainly be willing to share information with you. Our different coalition partners like Working Families, like the National Organization of Women, the Economic Progress Institute, a number of different labor unions, and I know I'm forgetting a bunch more. There's a number of different groups that are involved in this coalition. Would all be happy to share with you data that you can then use to form your own opinions. We encourage people to reach out to their legislators and to say, hey, this is really important and I want you to support this because you're representing me and you think this is important. It's pretty easy to do. You just call up your legislator, you write an email, maybe you stop up at the State House and you talk to your legislator, but it's always important to let them know where you stand on an issue and let them know how you'd like them to support you.
And you mentioned just a moment ago that gender inequity encompasses more than just pay. So let's talk about some of your other initiatives that Women's Fund is working on. One of them being that we're seeing across the country is the Me Too movement and Time's Up movement. So one of the initiatives that you're working on is freedom from sexual harassment. What's the focus of this and how do we do that?
Yeah. Again, it's really, sexual harassment comes down to a power issue at the end of the day. Somebody's got power over somebody else and they're forcing them to do something that they're not comfortable with. And there's the possibility of, I'm going to lose my job, or I'm not going to get something that I have to have if I don't do what this person is asking me to do. So it's a power play, if you will. That's a cultural issue. From the women's fund perspective, you know, there are different pieces of legislation that are being considered up at the State House that may have some impact on this. There's a new anti-bullying in the workplace bill that could have some implications around this. But also having discussions around the topic and really exploring things is really important. And to that end, in February, we're doing a Cocktails and Conversations networking event where the title is Feminism is a Male Issue. And it's all about how do we get men involved in these discussions. Oftentimes, men feel like they're being attacked, you know, like I'm only the bad guy, I can't be the good guy. There are many ways that men can be allies in this particular issue, and so that particular networking event explores that. We've got a number of speakers who will be talking about, you know, how can bystanders who are viewing something that's happening that's wrong, how can they get involved? How do we talk to each other in a way that is going to be respectful but also gets the point across? There are lots of different things that will be covered in that particular program. We'll also be talking about gender equity in the workplace in March at our March Cocktails and Conversations event. And that, again, will explore what the work culture is like and how we can help to level that playing field. Really interesting, in April we are doing our Women Leading Change celebration, and this year the theme is gender equity in sports. And what did we hear in the news this week about a doctor who's been sentenced to many years in prison for violence, if you will, against young girls? The speaker that we have on tap for this program, Digit Murphy, she is the founder of Play It Forward Sports Foundation. She's also the coach for the China women's hockey team. Wow. She's going to talk about what gender equity in sports should look like, can look like, how we can get there, and address a lot of these issues. So that's coming up in April. We're really excited about it.
That's incredible. I'm really looking forward to that. So that should be an amazing event. I just think that as we move forward, we've had this conversation on this program so many times on how, as we move forward, this has to be a culture change. It has to be an education change. It has to be a mindset change.
That's right.
That we can't move forward to prevent and eradicate sexual harassment, sexual assault, sexual violence. We can't move forward until we all change our mindset. We change our cultural position.
Right.
So anything that we can do, whether it's having a cocktail and a conversation, whether it's having a conversation with our kids, having a conversation internally with ourselves, and having a discussion with someone or yourself, or just reflecting upon the verbiage that we use in everyday or how we treat each other, it's not going to change unless we do something about it.
That's right. And again, that is also why it's really important to reach out to your legislators. Let's not just make it a conversation between us. Let's involve the wider community, and where there's opportunity to set policies for our communities, let's take advantage of that and pass those.
Yeah, and make a change. Do you feel like what's happening right now at the State House it's the right legislation, or do you think things that kind of need to be looked over or tweaked?
I think
it's the right step.
It's definitely the right step.
Okay.
Can there always be room for improvement? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I believe if we can pass the fair pay bill this year, that we will have made a major step towards gender equity in the workplace. And again, that $15 minimum wage. To me, that's not enough. Not at this point in time.
No,
but
especially in 5 years from now, it's not
especially
going to be
in
the
5
right.
years from now. But if we can make some movement towards that, recognizing that again, many women make minimum wage. Many women are the sole breadwinners for their families. How can they raise How could they raise their families on such a low amount of money and still be able to contribute to the economy? We want to change some of that.
Yeah, just making those steps towards progress, I think it is a big step. One more initiative that we want to discuss before we get you out of here is access to reproductive health and freedom. And I think this has been an ongoing topic of conversation and a big issue that Women's Fund RI has been fighting for.
Sure. So one of the other coalitions that we're part of is the Coalition for Reproductive Freedom. And this particular coalition is really working to make sure that access to reproductive health is maintained here in Rhode Island. And that is up to and including the ability to have an abortion if somebody feels it's necessary. We are seeing, unfortunately, too many states like South Dakota, which are just about to close down their only reproductive health clinic for hundreds of miles for women, because that is connected to Planned Parenthood. And some people feel like Planned Parenthood is just abortion, and it's not. It's regular health checkups. It's reproductive health checkups for women. It's how can I have a healthy baby? It's all of these different things. If women do not have the information that they need, that's not going to be helpful. If they're not getting the kind of care that they need, it's only going to make things worse for the community. What we do know at the Women's Fund is when women have the ability to choose when is the right time for them to be having children, that their economic outcomes are going to be much stronger. So that's really important to us, to make sure that there's a choice available, and make sure that the proper care is available no matter what choice they make. So we are definitely proponents of the Reproductive Health Care Act of 2018. That's another bill that's up at the State House. We hope that people will come out in support of that. That is something that is extremely important for our legislators to hear your thoughts on. If you support it, if you don't support it, it's really important to make sure that your legislator knows how you feel. What we've heard from legislators is when they get more than 5 or 6 calls on a topic, that's a lot of calls.
Wow.
So
really?
Just your minimum effort could be the thing that helps to make a bill pass or not get passed. So it's really important to just take that extra step to reach out to your legislator.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Wow. So pick up the phone.
That's right.
You can actually still make a phone call on
Yes.
these things, right? You can
They
actually
also work too.
These actually still work as a phone call device.
Right.
That's interesting. Was Women's Fund already part of the Women's March?
So we attended the event.
Yeah.
We didn't speak at the event.
Yeah.
We were certainly there in support
attendance?
of
Yeah.
in support of the many organizations that were there and the speakers that were there. All fantastic, and everybody's working towards that same goal. It's really equity for all. And I will say this, we're about women and girls, but when you do right by women and girls in our community, you are helping everyone.
I would agree with that as a woman and once a girl. As we move forward into 2018, 2017 was a very interesting year for a lot of reasons. Yeah. How do you feel like things have changed over the past year? Do you think things have, in Rhode Island, do you think things have stayed the same, gotten better, gotten worse in Rhode Island?
The Me Too and Time's Up issues have, I think, had a positive impact in our community. Not so much that we're hearing more about this, but that it's really bringing to light that these issues still exist. The fact that our legislators just had sexual harassment avoidance training up at the State House is really important, because sometimes we just need to check in and make sure that people do know what best practices are and don't assume that they know what is the right way to behave and what's not. Sometimes it's really clear, sometimes it's not. Having that regular training and check-in, I think, is really important. We still have a lot of room for improvement on a number of different things, and so we'll continue to work in that direction. We'll continue to come out to speak to GoLocal Prov and other groups about updates and where we are and where we can go and how we might get there. And we're always looking for your input as well.
I think it's interesting. While getting through 2017 was tough in some regards, it was also uplifting in some regards, just the fact that it lit a fire within so many people and got so many people interested and doing things and brought attention to so many issues that needed to be brought attention to. So you can look at it in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely. We are so excited about the number of women who are running for office, and regardless of whether it's Democrat, Republican, Independent, there are so many new faces that are running for office or considering running for office. It's so important to have that diversity of voice and thought in our law houses, in workplaces. I think 2018 is going to be a really exciting year.
I think it is too. I think whenever you can bring new voices and a diversity, like we've had this conversation on this show oftentimes, you want to be represented by people who look like you,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So when you can bring that kind of attention, it's always a good thing. So Kelly, thank you so much for chatting with us. If you're interested in the event, it's Tuesday, I should say,
Yep.
up at the State House. So you can always contact Women's Fund of Our Eye. And of course, you have a ton of events coming up.
Yeah, please visit our website at wfri.org. You'll find our events calendar there. We'd love to see you at one or more of them.
They always look excellent. So thank you so much for joining us, Kelly. I appreciate it. As always, come on back like you always do. We appreciate it. We're going to wrap up here on the Lifestyle edition of Go Local Live here in the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center. Business Monday starts in just a few, so hang tight. Josh Fenton takes that over. I'm Molly O'Brien. Thanks again for joining us.